Hello, this is Audrey Gordon. Welcome to day 11 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. Today we're going to see just how amazingly easy it is to create a model-driven app based on everything we've already learned in days 1 through 10. So there are basically two ways to start when you're ready to build your app. But I do want to accentuate that before you click these buttons and before you start creating an app, prepare your data model, because model driven means driven from the model or the data model. So make sure your data model is good. And we've reviewed this together. Make sure you have your tables, like either you're using the common data model or you added your own custom tables. You've also created relationships between your tables. So think that relationships are important. And I guess my biggest suggestion would be to do them immediately after the tables are available that they're related to. That way, when you create your forms and views, they'll be available to you in the related tabs, right? Which you'll notice in almost all of the interfaces that you will see in tables. When you're building views and when you're building forms, you will always have a way to get to related data. All right. So that's why it's a good idea to set that up first. And then, add anything extra. Now, we haven't talked about business rules, but I'm going to sneak one into this app today, and we'll have another day to talk about business rules. And they are associated with the forms. Okay. But we'll have another day to talk about that because it's a little bit more intense to learn. All right, so basically you've done all that, and I consider that days 1 through 10, and now you're ready to make an app, and that's when you click on these buttons. So I would say use these buttons after you've done those prerequisites, and model driven is going to be super easy for you. All right, let's flip over to Power Apps and see how this is done. So I'm going to go right back to the Power Apps environment that we have been using here in Megan Bowen's environment. Notice I have no apps in here right now, but we do have that solution that we created a couple of days ago called 25 Days. You may want to create a solution called Events because that's the theme of this first app. We're just the scenario is just that we're helping our customers with the release of their events, which are held at our negotiated locations, right? So you may want to rename this events because this is just the first custom solution that we're going to have in the 25 days. All right. So if you recall, we leveraged the account table because that's where all of our customers are. So we didn't change that. We didn't make anything new. We just leveraged it. We didn't have to put it into the solution because when we put the event into the solution, which was the custom table we made, we set up a relationship from the event to the account table. And that relationship went in and dropped that account table in. The only thing custom in the account table that we added, trying to remember, I think we have a business type. Yes, we have a business type column that we actually changed the choices. So we added that as an element that's going to be unique. Now, every other Dataverse environment will have everything that's in the account table. So there's no reason for us to kind of like itemize everything in the account table. That's the beauty of using CDM. It's well known wherever you move it, as long as you're moving it to a place with a Dataverse database, okay? But when you customize things in the CDM, then you want to make sure your customizations are both in the solution and published. So just make sure of that. Okay, so then the last thing we added, and I think I did this off screen. I left it for you to do on your own, but we created another table called site inspection. And the difference between the site inspection and the event is that the event was a standard table, in this case a standard custom table, but the site inspection is an activity table. So we'll see this light up on our activities, okay? And for each of those two tables, we set up views and forms. And I think I only added one thing to the site inspection form that I didn't talk to you about yet, but I'll give you a peek at it. When I put all the pieces on the form, which are on that day, I changed this from being a drop down of yes, no to being a toggle switch just by selecting this and then coming over here to components and changing it to toggle. Okay, so you can just add a component if you don't see it, and there's toggle and Canvas app. We were just going to make those toggle switches so that if they were using their phones, they could just tap that very easily. Okay, that's one thing. And then one other thing I added to the site inspection activity table is a business rule. But in this case, I kept it really simple. I didn't even actually use backward planning. I just simply said the moment that this site inspection activity is created, add 7 days to it, and that becomes our due date. All right. So we're just taking the due date if it's blank, and we're adding 7 days to the created date. And you can see this down here probably best. Let me see if I can zoom in down here. But we will have a day when we'll talk about these. Basically, if the due date of the site inspection does not contain any data, which means it's brand new, then set the due date to the date this was created plus 7 days. All right, that's all I added. And it's just because I didn't want the due date field to be empty. But again, we will come back to talking about that as well. All of that has been done in the solution, so there's nothing else for us to do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think on day 1, we had created this global choice list called Venue. I think someone corrected me and said it's venue, whatever way you want to say it. I actually speak French, so it's hard to say this the American way. But anyway, it has 3 places because those are the 3 places where we've negotiated the cost. All right. Since that doesn't exist in the CDM by default, I need to make sure I put it in this solution so that when I deploy this somewhere else, that choice will come along with it. Keep in mind that when you're talking about choice lists, you do get the values of a choice list, but when you're talking about table data, you will not get the data. So the data doesn't carry over from environment to environment. You'd have to use a migration technique in order to get the data from one environment to another. We kind of make the assumption that in most ALM models, you don't want to copy the data. So your production environment will have different data than, say, your dev environment normally. But if you do want to bring the data over, maybe you want to make a pre-production situation, then there are ways to do that using the migration techniques. And we'll talk about that soon, okay? Just not today. All right, so basically, these are all the things that we've already done, day 1 through 10. Let's make the app, all right? So I'm just going to go to apps. I'm inside my solution when I do this. This way it's all nicely packaged together. And I'm going to say new app. Notice all the things I can make, by the way. I'm going to say new app, and I'm going to choose model driven. And to me, this is by far the easiest app to create, especially if you've got your data model nicely put together. You will never fail on the model driven. Okay, so then you click on that and you give this app a name, and I'm just going to call this event services. Okay, and these are event services for our account. All right, I could be much more complicated about this, but I'm just going to do that and say create. And now that the app is created, it's waiting for me to add pages. All right, I can do it here. I do it here all the time in the top left. The reason why is because I'm a creature of habit. So I do it the same way every single time. But you do have 3 options here. You can do the top of the screen, you can do over here, or you can do in the middle of the screen. Whatever makes you happy. The middle of the screen goes away once you have a page though. This is only there when you have nothing added. Okay? So I'm going to do add page, and I'm going to add a Dataverse table. And in this case, when you choose this, you can add as many tables as you want. So I'm going to add 3. I'm going to add account. And I know we talked about this, that you don't need to add all 3. Basically, if you add the parent, it will get the others involved in the app for you. But I want them in the navigation, so that's why I'm adding them, all 3 of them. Well, I'm only adding accounts and events. That's all I'm adding. I'm not going to add site inspection. And you'll see what I mean by you don't need to, because it's inferred in the relationship. So you don't have to add it to your app pages. Okay? This is all about what do they see when they open this app, basically. But then as you drill into these things, you'll automatically get the related things to these in your app when you see your app run. Okay? So basically that's all I really wanted to do. Now, if I had any custom views, like for instance, let's say in my accounts, I only want to see my active accounts. I don't want to see all this stuff. We did talk about this. You can actually specify what you want to be the views in this app, and it will only show what you put over here. So again, let me repeat that. If you don't put anything over here, it'll show all of the views that are available in your solution. If you put something over here, then it's just what's over here. And you can add as many as you'd like. Okay. Then I'm going to add over the event. And I'm going to let it just default because I think we don't have many views there. So it won't be confusing for them to see just 3. It's just an account has a lot. That's why I kind of limited that down. And I might also add a couple of others. But I don't need maybe all accounts, maybe those 2. But I want to keep this kind of restricted so that they don't get confused. So I limit my views to only what my users will need. All right, so then I'm going to save. FYI, we are finished building our app. It's done. We don't have anything else to do. All right, we could maybe go back to the app page, look at this over here is the navigation. See the navigation? So this is pages, this is navigation, this is data tables, and this is automation. So business process flows, which we'll talk about as well. But while I'm on navigation, if I don't want this to say group 1, I can click on group 1 and name it work streams. Let's just name it that for now. I don't have a better name in my head. And then save. And then publish. And then let's play this app and test it out. Play. Okay. Now, I only put 1 event in for testing, and that was on a datum. And you can see that if I click on events, because here's my event list, there's only 1 in there, and it's for a datum. So let's go and check how this all flows, right? So a datum has everything here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole model-driven app. Since I have sample data in this tenant, it automatically shows all that data associated with it. If you take this to another tenant that doesn't have sample data, then it'll be blank, but it'll still 100% work, okay? There's a site inspection logged here. Notice on these activities, I can now add my site inspection because I added that as an activity table. So bam, it's automatically there. If you want to change which one of these are there, then look at your account form, because we're on the account form right now, and you can disable any of these, but we definitely want the site inspection, and we want notes if we want to allow for attachments. All right. So there is a site inspection here. You can see you can assign it to somebody. You can mark it complete right here. You can add it to a queue. You can open the record, or you can delete it. All right. So if you have rights to delete, I'm just going to open the record, and you can see here's the related event. It's called Power Platform Roadmap. The activity is in progress. Obviously, they've already checked that the laptops are connected to the monitors and the printed materials are refilled. But for some reason, the expo hall is not clean. And over here, we can see a note because we have an activity timeline for that inspection. And the note says, waiting on the cleaning crew delayed in traffic, hoping to close this out by 5 p.m. today. So we're not stopped or in any way, but we're just delayed because cleaning crews are late. But all of that's visible. We don't have to go call Jane or Jack or anybody to find out what's going on. It's all here in the activity. When they get done, they will not only mark the expo hall complete, but they will also enter the actual end date. Now, they will click a mark complete button, which will mark this complete as well, so that we can keep track of what's complete and what's not. And if you notice here, if we go into related events, you'll also have the related events show up as a relationship to the account. And then from the events, you can find the site inspection. So everything is working exactly as we expected. And we literally built this app in minutes. It would have been faster if I had shut up. But I had to talk to you about what I did. So that's all I wanted to cover for day 11 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. And I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow as we kind of talk about some of the other things that we haven't done yet, such as the business rules and so on. But we're also going to, after we finish getting through some of this like preliminary stuff, we will also get deep. We'll have 3 days talking about Canvas apps and what you can do in Canvas apps and what makes kind of Canvas apps easier using Dataverse. And I'll show you that too. So I'm looking so forward to continuing this series with you. I hope you appreciate the value of model-driven apps after you see how easy it is to build an app. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Happy holidays.